Thanks for joining this live discussion today. I'm Deepak Xavier, head of Oxfam's Inequality campaign, Even It Up. And today, I have the privilege of hosting Oxfam International's Executive Director and my super boss, Winnie Byanyima, all the way from Nairobi. So thanks a lot for joining us. And I'm very keen, before we start talking to Winnie, I'm very keen to know where are you joining from. So please do let us know in the comments box where you're joining us from. And Winnie, welcome, warm welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today for this live discussion.
Thank you, Deepak, super colleague.
I'm honored. So Winnie, you have come back from snowy, chilly Davos last week, and you went there to attend the World Economic Forum, where business and political leaders gather every year to discuss about economy and development. And I guess you didn't go there to ski, but I saw a news article which mentioned that Oxfam head, that's you, slapped down Davos elite. Did you really slap them? Basically, we are very curious to know what happens in Davos, and you go to Davos in a place full of elites and billionaires, and what does how do you actually carry the message of inequality? What does it mean to be speaking about inequality in such gathering?
Davos is surreal. Davos, you look on your left, you see a central bank governor. You look on your right, there's a billionaire. You look ahead of you, there's a president. It's not a real world. It's a world of power, political power and business power. But I'm kept real because I have my iPhone. On my iPhone, I'm getting messages in my inbox, on my text from real people who live here in Nairobi, where I live, from Uganda, in the villages where my relatives are. So I am just there, so anxious to put the message of ordinary people to these people who live in an unreal world. So I spend all my time doing interviews, meeting people, telling them, giving them a very uncomfortable message, really uncomfortable message. Sometimes I even skip my lunch because I just want to have as many meetings as possible. So, yeah, this time there's something that we said, the young man called Rutger and I, that seemed to have touched a nerve.
Exactly, you're coming to my next follow-up question, but just a quick reminder to all the participants joining us live, please send us your questions on the comment box so we could ask Winnie and engage in a conversation. So, Winnie, we must really talk about this video of you and Dutch historian Rutger that has gone viral, and it has been viewed over 20 million times on Facebook and Twitter alone, and hundreds and thousands of shares. And you mentioned that you go to Davos and talk about inequality and ask uncomfortable questions. And what made this video different and made it go viral?
You see, I think I have to give it to Rutger. Rutger is a young man. And I love young people. Like any young person, he's irreverent. He tells the truth as he sees it. So he was on the panel and he just talked. He said, why are we talking about philanthropy? Talk about tax. It's taxes that must pay for these things. And he gave me courage because I have been saying my message many, many times, but always more respectfully, more politely. But really what enraged me was that there was this corporate bigwig, if I may say, who really expressed the view of someone who does not connect with the lives of the millions of ordinary people who are crushed at the bottom. And he said that he taxes, what's the problem? Unemployment is low. And I had to give him a reality check. So both the bluntness and the carefree and the truthfulness of Rutger, plus the anger that came because a privileged, rich person was expressing a reality that the millions of people in the world don't understand, who are crushed. I felt I had to tell him. So I told him in the best way I could that unemployment figures mean nothing, really. To ordinary people, to the women I know, who are crushed at the bottom of this rigged economy, who do these jobs like women in Bangladesh I talked about,
Yes.
who work 80 hours a week, who have no rights at work, who will be fired if they get pregnant, who don't get paid if they are sick, who earn for the entire lifetime what their chief executive earns in 4 days. 4 days. I said no. I had to put the reality check there. That's what happened, that in that room, for the first time maybe in many years, they were being told what ordinary people know, but what never filters in their rooms.
So that's the person who asked the question is now famously known as the Davos man in Twitter and Facebook, and people are talking about how you took down a Davos man, and well done to you and Rutger. Vinny, so thanks. We are today joined by participants from all the way from Cambodia to Pakistan to UK, United States of America, and Canada, and where not. So thank you all for joining us. So one of the questions that has come from online from one of you is, Oxfam is saying the economy is broken, and this is from someone called Charlotte. Hope I pronounce your name right. Charlotte from Germany. Oxfam is saying the economy is broken. What does that mean? What do you mean by broken economy?
Yeah, Oxfam, we do the number crunching. Let me tell you, using numbers, what this means. Last year, we counted 26 billionaires, 26, had as much wealth as the bottom half of humanity, 3.8 billion people. Now, if that is not bad enough, this picture isn't static. It is worsening. Wealth is concentrating at a dizzying rate in the hands of fewer and fewer people. Because we also counted and found that the top billionaires were increasing their wealth by $2.5 billion a day, while the bottom half of humanity, 3.8 billion people, their wealth was decreasing by $500 million a day. So that is the rate at which inequality is widening. And what we bring, the uncomfortable message we bring is that this is not disconnected, that actually the increasing wealth at the top is because of the exploitation and the crushing of people at the bottom. The people at the bottom are sinking, the top are wallowing in more and more wealth, and this is one story, not two different stories. This is the uncomfortable message that in these good surroundings of Davos, at the dinner tables, in the rooms, they don't want to hear, but we got it there.
So just a quick reminder to all the participants, please do send us your questions for Winnie on the comments box. We are tracking those questions, and we will be very happy to ask Winnie your question. Winnie, you talked about just 26 individuals owning as much wealth as bottom half of humanity. That's 3.8 billion people, the same wealth as them. And a lot of critics have been saying that, don't worry about wealth concentration. The money that is being generated, that's wealth, and the growth that is being generated is going to trickle down. Everyone at the bottom is going to get rich. So what do you have to say to that?
But Deepak, it won't find anybody there because it's crushing the people at the bottom. This trickle-down theory is just a lot of nonsense, hogwash. It doesn't work. The truth is that it is governments who have chosen to manage the economies to benefit a few at the top and not to benefit their people. If they make different choices, we can have an economy where everyone has a good job, a decent wage, and is living well, and those at the top can have their wealth, but not to that extremity. But governments have chosen first not to tax the wealthy. Their wealth is sitting untaxed, either because they've dodged the tax through loopholes that they've created for themselves in the laws, and so it's sitting in tax havens untaxed, or what is taxed so minimally that they don't pay their fair share of taxes, and the tax burden is passed on to poorer people, and poor people, ordinary people, are denied the public services that would give them lives of dignity, like health and education. So we are talking about 262 million children not in school as the billionaires maximize. We are talking of 10,000 people who die every day because they have no doctor and they can't afford medicine. So we are talking about a cost to people's lives by this kind of economy that allows the wealthy to get more and that suppresses ordinary people, even if they are so hardworking.
So, like, usually we say, like, hard work rewards.
Mm.
So here you're saying, like, even when people are working really hard, it's only benefiting those who are at the top and not necessarily the ones who are working hard. So we have a question from Hussein from Pakistan. Thank you for your question, and others, I'm encouraging you to send your questions on the comment box. So Hussein is asking Winnie, is it possible for Oxfam to do a similar report for countries like Pakistan so that, like, we could actually compare the global reality with the national reality? What do you have to say?
Oh, Hussein, that's brilliant. I just wish every country could prepare its own inequality report and show the citizens of that country just how their governments are doing. Because this is governments. Governments can choose if they want to tax the wealth, to tax those who have the broad shoulders, and plow that money in education of our children, in health of our people, in protection, social protection of those who are weak, the elderly, those who've worked and now are ready to retire. It can do that. Or it can choose to give them a pass, the rich, the companies, like they are doing now, and then deny hardworking people their rights, their right to health. If you work every day and you are taxed every day, why should you not get free health when you fall sick? But now, these days, it is sold, and we are now taking it as health is a privilege of those who have money. It shouldn't be. It's a right of every person. So yes, a report every year would mobilize citizens to demand from their governments to manage economies in their favor.
So we have another question from a participant, Q from Baguma. So you are giving us a suggestion that statutory provisions would reduce inequality all over the world by way of providing a minimum wage that matches the current rates of standards of living, proximate to the real GDP of the respective countries. Winnie, what would you like to...
Minimum wage. This guy, Baguma, is saying something that is correct. In many countries, minimum wage. In other words, they allow those who have money, who have businesses, to decide whatever they want to do with their workers. So workers are treated like a cost to the business, not as people with human rights who are contributing to the business. So we need governments to get up and legislate a minimum wage which is equal to a living wage. In some of our countries, there's a minimum wage which is nonsense, which is a mockery, because it doesn't anywhere compare with the cost of living. So governments, again, have abandoned workers. Rights of workers have been silenced all over the world. They no longer can bargain for wages. And this is how you get this Yahoo CEO or CFO telling us unemployment figures. He's counting people who are oppressed, who cannot demand a better wage, who have to work under difficult conditions, like the women who have no proper health conditions, who suffer risks, whose factories crush them while they are sewing clothes for us. I mean, how can you count those as jobs? Those are traps, poverty traps, lives of indignity. I don't count that as figures of people who are decently employed. So minimum wage is critical. And minimum wage, which is living wage.
Yeah, we are talking, like Winnie is emphasizing on not just any employment, but employment with dignity, employment that helps one to live and not be trapped in poverty.
And can I come in here a
Yes,
little deeper?
yes.
Really, when it comes to this issue, the worst victims are women. Again, it's women who get the worst deal here. I talked about, and I was really touched by the people who responded when this thing went viral, the people who came on the social, on Twitter to tell their own stories of the indignity they suffer at work, of the humiliation of some of these jobs which they proudly reel off as employment figures, when they are really lives of humiliation, of depression, of suppression. I talked about women in America, in Arkansas, who pack chickens, whose hands have been debilitated by that job, that they can't hold their babies, and they are counting them as jobs. I talked about Dolores, who has to wear a nappy at work because she is not allowed. When she said she wanted to go to the toilet, the supervisor mocked her and said to her that, hey, I told you not to drink water or to eat a lot of food. So she has to wear a nappy to work. That kind of humiliation. We are living in Dickensian times. This is what I read in English literature. Conditions of work that are violating human rights. And they count them as jobs.
So just a quick reminder to participants, please send us, keep your questions coming for Winnie on the comments box. Winnie, I'm just taking a cue from your last point that you made. You talked about women workers especially. And in one of your previous comments, you mentioned that our economy is broken and is sexist. So I would like to actually, want you to talk to us more about what you mean by sexist, why our economy is sexist.
Let me use a story that is just in my heart right now. It's about my own cousin, Mary. Mary is my first cousin. Her father and my father were brothers, but her father never went to school. I was lucky. Mine had gone to school, and here I am. She never went to school. She grazed cows for her father. Her father married her off when she was young, got cows out of her. She had children. She's built herself. She's learned to read and write as an adult. She's a Christian. She's a leader in her community. She's 62 today. She's been diagnosed with cancer. She's done her work in this world. She's raised sons and daughters. She's worked. She's looked after her elderly father until he died, the mother until she died. She's done all the care in the world. Plus, putting her kids in school with her own effort. Now she has cancer. There's nothing there for her. The government has nothing there for her. We, her relatives, have pulled money together, $3,000, which she needs to have an operation. Tomorrow she's in the clinic, to be operated on. But meanwhile, the president, his healthy daughter, 20-something, needs to have a baby, a healthy baby, is packed in a presidential jet and flown to Germany to have her healthy baby. That is the inequality we are talking about. People in the government, senior people, they can be flown to India to be treated of little problems, flown to Germany for little problems. But a woman who's worked, paid her taxes, put her kids to school, sold everything she has, never went to school, never had any benefit from public services, is going to die, maybe, if we can't raise more money to help her fight the cancer. So I'm talking about women suffering because they have the burden of earning, and then on top of that, they have the burden of caring for families, the elderly, the sick, the children, everybody. They feed everyone. They combine those roles, and we have governments that are maximizing for a few at the top, not taxing the rich, helping themselves, being corrupt, and delivering so little in terms of public services to women like Mary. So I'm angry. I'm an angry woman because I see women crushed in two ways. Crushed with the burden of unpaid care work at home, and crushed by poverty and finding a job in the bottom of the supply chains of rich people.
So we have another question from a participant. I'm also encouraging you all to send more questions from Kaiser in Pakistan. So Kaiser is asking, civic space is shrinking in his country and also across Asia. And what can Oxfam or what can we do to work on that? How do we actually tackle this shrinking civic space?
Kaiser, Oxfam, we are one small part of broad civil society. We are an organized group of citizens across maybe 90 countries, trying to work with others to raise the voices of citizens against this kind of economic injustice, political injustice. We are being silenced, but is it surprising? It shouldn't be. It's not surprising. Where there is such huge inequality and injustice, you can only expect that those in power either take our side and take on the powerful and ask for justice and do justice, or they will silence us every time we try to speak. That's what's happening. Rich people, rich companies are not using their money just to drive Mercedes-Benz cars and live luxury, drink champagne. No, they are using their money to buy politics. They are in power. The billionaires are in power. If they are not in power, they are paying someone to be in power to make the laws for them. They are buying the media. They are the ones who can speak. We can't speak because they bought the media. They bought the law. They bought the courts. They get impunity. So we have to stand firm as civil society. This is the moment to organize and claim back our voice. The first thing to claim is our voice. These things I'm saying on Facebook, we have to say in the corridors of power, fearlessly. We have to organize.
Thanks. Again, a reminder to all of our participants to please keep sending your questions and for Winnie. So we have one more from S. Buzara, and she is asking, apologies for my lack of knowledge. Great job on the Davos panel, Winnie. You're absolutely right about jobs with dignity. Developing and emerging countries on the continent have to reject the US model of wage slavery and unemployment. Do you agree to that, Winnie?
I agree. We must not always think that whatever comes from the rich countries is wisdom, is unquestioned. The kind of capitalism that I see in America is not what we need in any country in the world, even in our poor countries. I meet women in New York when I go for meetings. I meet a woman who is cleaning my room in the hotel. She tells me, I can see that her eyes are red and it's still 9 o'clock in the morning. She says, sister, often she's actually a black woman like me. She says, sister, I got up at 5 this morning, but I came home at 3 in the morning, coming back from my third job. This is my first job today. I'm knocking off at 3 to go to my second job at 5, and to my third job, I crawl into my house at 3. I don't see my kids. I don't eat with them. So what kind of a life is that? And they count her as employed. She has 3 jobs in order to survive. No, jobs with dignity. We want people to have a job that gives them an income in order to be with their families, to be with their children, to do homework with them, to be able to take them to clinic and not worry that they will not have money to pay. And these things are possible. We cannot accept that by the message from the billionaires that these things are not important, they are not possible. The only world we must live in is where they have billions and they are going to Mars and they are going to space and others are crushed in poverty. No, we don't accept that. Oxfam says a world where everybody lives in dignity is possible. It's possible.
And I think that's the hope keeping all of us alive. And please keep your questions coming. And we have another question from Hannah. Hannah is asking, we seem to live in an information age where much information, communication, and even relationships are formed over technology using digital means. Do you think access to technology, to the internet, factors in inequality, and has access to internet becomes or has become a human right?
Technology is actually not neutral. Technology is a tool. We can use it to empower people, or we can use it for a few to maximize, and that's what seems to be happening. We now have these big tech companies that are monopolies, near monopolies, and that are totally unregulated, and that are running away and changing our world, taking away jobs, doing whatever they want, running amok. But actually, when you think about technology and how it has been used in the past, you're going to see that technology has usually been invented by public money, our taxes, this Google, a lot of this internet itself came from taxes, public money, government projects that actually do the innovation. But later on, some private person adds a little bit, captures it, and takes off and makes billions and is allowed. No, we have to put technology in the control, and it has to be shared by all. We have to have governments being smart enough to invest and own technological innovations. We have to have them play their role of regulating technology so that it doesn't harm us. We already regulate technology from harming us in food. We regulate medicines. We must regulate all kinds of technology so that they give us jobs for our people. Yes, access to technology should be a right for everybody, but technology must not be used to take away lives, to take away livelihoods, to make some people rich to the point that they control our information, they control our futures. No, governments again are not taking their role of regulating, co-owning, and leading technological innovation to benefit us all. Yeah, I think you've raised a very important question on technology.
Thanks, Winnie. So we have another question from Salima Munir. And the question is, economic inequality is also dictated by social structure in each country, which is not just because of rich people. What are we doing to address such inequality? Winnie.
I think Salima is talking about inequalities that are that we see that are being driven, say, by culture, by social norms, and so on. The fact is that whenever you see religion, culture, traditions pushing values that are supporting the suppression, the exploitation, the oppression of some and for the benefit of others, you have to understand that that is really always the creation of those at the top. Those who hold power are the ones who shape cultural values, religious values, and all these things. So women suffer because, look, who controls the religions of the world? Who are the cultural leaders of the world? It is men. They shape the rules that are going to govern a woman's life, whether in her bedroom, whether with her children, whether in the farm, whether in the shop. The rules are defined by one gender. That's why we in Oxfam really work towards creating societies where men and women make the rules together, shape society together, form culture together. We need new culture. We need culture that doesn't put a higher value on a boy than a girl. We need culture that makes a man and a woman equal in their household so they contribute equally and raise their children equally. That kind of culture is something that is going to be defined by us as society, just rejecting the old rules, that were created by those who had the power alone. So I sound like a feminist, indeed I am, and I want to put this on the table, that this rigged economy has taken advantage of a culture that's patriarchal, to crush women, to put them at the bottom. So part of the problem of economic exploitation is that it takes advantage of the culture and the traditions in society.
As we are speaking, one of the participants is sending a hopeful news. This is from Elis Nalbandian from Ethiopia. So the person is saying Ethiopia has a new law for civil society organizations. They've just passed a new law which is giving more freedom to NGOs, to our civil society organizations to operate, which is so contrary to other news that we usually get, is governments actually trying to shrink, close spaces for civil society organizations. So this is from Elis from Ethiopia.
Elis, thank you so much for giving us a hopeful message. This is so important, that space is opening in Ethiopia, and many other things are positive that I see happening in Ethiopia. Women are at the commanding heights of government. War has ended between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and families are reuniting. There are many things. Even on this rigged economy, we are seeing positive things. We are seeing, for example, in Korea, of all countries, Korea, the new government there has increased the tax on the rich and has put the money it's getting into social protection. It has increased the minimum wage so that workers have a decent life. I mean, we're seeing change happening, not in enough countries, but some countries are showing us it's possible. So thank you, Elise, for putting us on a hopeful note. It's possible.
Yeah, your questions or what you share could also be hope or good news. Please let them coming in. So we have another question from Laura, who's asking, we hear about what government should do to reduce inequality or tackle inequality. What we should do to tackle inequality?
Let me talk about what government should do. Take a government like here in Kenya, where I am. I was so happy to hear the president of this country talk about his big four, the agenda of the big things he wants for his people, which include health care. Now, and then the next thing he did, he tried to suggest to increase the tax on the rich from 30%, the top rate, to 35%. I thought, great, that's what he should do. But you know, and you know what? It didn't take a long time. He pulled back, unfortunately, because of public concerns. He pulled back to 30% where it is. The truth is that Kenya in 1988 had a top tax rate of 65%. It was not going to be crush the rich, just increase their tax by 5% in order to get more money, in order to put it in his health agenda. So, my point is, I encourage leaders like President Uhuru Kenyatta here and other leaders who see the importance of increasing tax on wealth, putting back those taxes on wealth. In about 20 years ago, the taxes on the top tax rates were about 65% globally in the rich countries. Today, they are down to 38%, down to 28% in developing countries. There's room, even the IMF says there's room to increase taxation, increase the taxes on the rich and the wealthy and the companies, and plow it in health, in education, in social protection, in law and order, infrastructure, to lift more people, to boom the economies and lift more people out of poverty. It's common sense. It's common sense. What governments need to do is to govern, manage economies in favor of their people, not in favor of the few. You have to choose. Do you want health for all, or do you want wealth for a few? Those are the choices. So it's clear what governments should do. Get out of working for the rich, serve your people. And for us citizens, we have to keep pushing. We have to organize. There is no struggle that has been won without citizens coming together, organizing around an idea and fighting for it.
Thanks, Winnie. So just a quick reminder to participants who have joined us late. We are in an interesting conversation with Winnie Byanyima, Oxfam International's Executive Director from Nairobi. And we are talking about extreme inequality and how to tackle it. So we have a question, and please keep your questions coming. You can send us your questions for Winnie using the chat box. We have another question from Sonia from Ghana. So Sonia is asking you, Winnie, our little efforts look like a drop in the ocean. What needs to be done now to reverse the strong tide women and girls face when gaps in public services are cut, or when funds for public services are cut?
Sonia, I don't know where you are sitting in this world, but if you are here in Africa with me, it is a very difficult moment we are in right now because the commodity boom has ended and our countries have borrowed, and after borrowing, now they are moving into the back to the period of debt and sustainability. We are going to face austerity again if we are not careful. Education, health are already being sold. The message is that good education is if you go to a school which has an iPad being run by a private entrepreneur. The role of government to provide education and health is being negated. And this is hurting women. It's going to hurt us, hurt poor women, hurt girl children the most. So in many countries, Africa, Asia, South Asia, we're going to see reversals of the gains we have made already. We're going to see even reversals in Latin America where inequality was declining. And this will hurt women more, their education, their health, their jobs. So I don't know why you are pessimistic. I am optimistic. We have to fight. There are things that show me that women are ready to fight, but we need to hold hands. This Me Too movement, which came from America, it was about women at work and violence against women at work in rich countries. All of us can ride on that. We can ride on that to claim rights for all women all over the world. So let's hold hands, Sonia. Let's not be despondent.
So let's hold hands. And we have another question from Joel, this time from Joel from Boston in the US. Joel is asking, the response to your Davos panel has been amazing, Winnie. Raising taxes on the super wealthy seems logical, but how can we stop them from dodging taxes in the first place?
Joel is right. There are two different problems. One is that governments are not taxing progressively, are not passing the burden. They are not asking the rich companies and people to pay their fair share. In countries like here in Africa, they are passing the burden to higher burden of taxation to ordinary people through consumer taxes. Now, but there's another big problem, which is the tax dodging, that also a big amount of what they earn is hidden. They are allowed legally to take it out of the countries, especially poor countries, and stash it into bank accounts in little islands like Cayman Islands, like Panama, like wherever. And there, that money sits untaxed. Sub-Saharan Africa, Oxfam estimates that rich individuals, not companies, just rich individuals, have stashed away a third of their wealth. 500 billion is stashed away in accounts offshore, untaxed. If it were taxed, we would have 14 billion US dollars of revenue in these poor countries with children not in school. 14 billion would put all the children in Sub-Saharan Africa who are not in school and pay for the health of 4 million other children. Imagine that's what we miss. So Oxfam is calling for a global corporate tax reform. This is not a problem that can be solved deeper by one country, because tax dodging is about crossing borders, hiding money through loopholes. This has to be done through cooperation, tax cooperation globally. And we are calling, and we keep calling for a global tax collaboration that introduces reforms, close the loopholes. It's not rocket science, but Africa, Asia, poor countries that suffer the most from this tax dodging should lead the call for change.
So today we have joined participants from Bolivia to Brazil to Pakistan to US to UK to Germany to Kenya to Ghana. Like them, I'm also curious, what is next? Where are you going next to challenge elite?
We are going to continue to expose the injustice. That is number one. We are going to continue putting out the data and telling the stories and using ordinary language to show that extreme inequality is trapping people in poverty, is causing ill health, is the reason why our politics have become so poisonous, and why we are seeing fascism and populism on the rise. It's the reason refugees are being scapegoat, women are being scapegoat, instead of tackling the real problem, which is extreme wealth, extreme inequality. We'll keep exposing that, using this technology, Facebook, whatever, to tell the real problem. We'll keep organizing. We have to build a momentum of people who demand a different world and a different economy, human economy. And we will continue tackling where the powerful are. If they don't refuse to invite me, I'll be there in Davos again, telling them the same message, quoting them the same figures, showing them how much they are destroying societies, destroying economies, dividing us, creating more crime, causing ill health, death of people, and how it could be different. So we'll continue proposing solutions, demanding for tax reform, progressive taxation, minimum wages, rights for workers, care work, plowing money into public services that take care of children, of old people, of disabled people, so that women can be free to work. These are things that are possible. We'll continue demanding, organizing and demanding. That is a way that change happens.
And you can also join Winnie to fight and continue to fight for equality by signing up at evenitab.org. With that, thank you so much, Winnie, and the participants for joining us for this lively conversation today. And we shall keep up our fight against inequality, and we shall overcome. Thank you.
Deepa.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night, and have a good day, depending on where you joined us from. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa.
Thanks,
Questions
Winnie.
were great.
Yeah, thanks for the audience questions as well.
I like the audience questions too.